Right as Mary Barra tells the world that actually General Motors are going to slow down its EV plans, the EV transition is going to take decades, well, General Motors just went and quietly had its best month ever. I mean, in history for electric car sales. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching The Electric Viking. The intriguing thing is, guys, here, Mary Barra may have jumped the gun. In fact, she has jumped the gun because people are making some comments online. They're saying, Mary, what are you talking about? I mean, finally, you're actually producing EVs. The market has responded with its best sales month ever. And now you're saying people don't want electric cars. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. I mean, when you give the market some good product, and I think General Motors has just done that, you've got to give it a few months before you make these insane decisions. Anyhow, General Motors did have its best month ever for EV sales. That, my friends, is awesome. An unfortunate thing happened when General Motors discontinued the Chevrolet Bolt. A lot of people, by the way, are pretty annoyed about that. A lot of people think that not everyone wants an Equinox or a Blazer or a Cadillac Lyriq, which are all basically the same sort of car, mid-sized crossovers. Not everyone wants that. Some people want something smaller, something more affordable, something more economical. And that's what people are saying here. They're saying, Chevy, GM's sales are going to be great, but they were kind of making all the same car. The Equinox, the Blazer, the Lyriq, they're all kind of the same car. Anyhow, when General Motors ended the Bolt, its total electric vehicle sales collapsed. However, that's what happens when you axe the most affordable EV in the United States. And not only was it the most affordable, but it was almost the only EV that General Motors were, basically mass producing. Anyhow, now 6 months after that, and finally General Motors have begun making a large number of cars. Now, unfortunately, this is happening. There's a lot more demand now because GM does have some pretty decent electric cars out. But at the same time, dealers are putting on these big markups. So dealerships are kind of hurting GM's EV sales. They could even be better than what these numbers are, potentially. GM CEO Mary Barra announced the news during last night's annual shareholder meeting, and curious as to how GM pulled this off without the Bolt in its lineup. Basically, you've got to have a look at the actual vehicles that they sold. Now, here's what GM said. We're seeing strong demand and increases across the board, in particular, Cadillac Lyriq and the new Chevrolet Blazer EV. The Hummer EV is building volume. Not that I want that to happen. I think that's a monstrosity of a vehicle, as is the Silverado EV. Silverado EV, I think, is pretty good. Initial deliveries of the new Equinox EV occurred at the end of May. Now, keep in mind, General Motors doesn't want to sell a lot of these cars. So even though this is a record, it's still only a fraction of the cars that General Motors sold in America. Now, the reason they don't want to sell a lot of them is because they're not making a profit on these cars. There's no way they're making a profit. General Motors, they're not like Ford. They're not going to be open and admit to that, but they're not. Caldwell added that the biggest impact comes from the Lyriq, which saw more than 3,000 units sold in May. GM's total EV volume in the US and Canada was more than 9,000 vehicles last month. That's actually a really good number because that means GM beat its previous record of 7,000, which was in 2023. So pretty big deal here. Now, unfortunately, it's kind of hard to find GM's EV sales because they normally actually only tell us what they were for every quarter. So finding out which, month by month what their sales are, like Ford, Ford tell us month by month, so it's easy to see what's going on at Ford. Bit harder to tell what's actually going on with GM's EV sales, and that's probably intentional, I'd say. One interesting thing is here. Cadillac's global vice president, John Roth, said that the Lyriq has had considerable momentum within the luxury brand, and it made up an impressive 17% of Cadillac's total sales in Q1. That's actually pretty good for a vehicle that they're not making that many of yet. The Blazer EV went back on sale after being removed from sale for 3 months because of massive software problems. There was like 68 different problems the Blazer EV had that journalists reported on when they tested it. They took it away from sale. It's now on sale again. The Equinox EV. Now, the Equinox EV it would sell incredibly well at its price of $35,000. That's after tax credits, by the way. That's, the cheapest model is actually $42,500. But GM has more options coming this year. the entry luxury Cadillac Optic, not going to be a big seller obviously because it costs many hundreds of thousands. The Escalade IQ, the GMC Sierra EV, and sales of the consumer spec Silverado EV. Now the Silverado EV is interesting because it can charge incredibly quickly because its battery pack is split into two. So essentially you're charging it in two separate batteries charging at the same time. So the charging speeds of the Silverado EV are, I believe, the fastest of any car on the market in America in terms of its real world charging speed. Range is incredible. We're looking at 460 miles of real world range for the Silverado EV. Price is a little high, but I still think it's actually pretty good value for money. I think the Silverado pickup truck is just miles better than Ford F-150 Lightning. And I think the demand will probably show us just how good it is. Keep in mind, it's got other features that a lot of other trucks don't have, like the mid-gate. The mid-gate function makes it incredibly practical. Anyhow, GM is feeling the heat of an EV market that's less even and predictable than the automotive industry imagined, says Inside EVs. High interest rates and fears around range and charging may keep more next wave EV adopters away for now, they say. Now, as always, anti-EVs is, putting the fear on everyone in terms of EV demand. Now, I don't agree, guys. I think the issue is going to be for the Silverado, right? It's expensive. It's $100,000. And it's like the Cybertruck, it's expensive. Fortunately for Tesla, they have more than 2 million pre-orders, so, that's going to help. But Cybertruck price will come down. Once they're finished with this, limited edition Founders model, it's going to be $80,000. So that's a lot cheaper. Plus, it will qualify for EV incentives in America. So it should come down to being about $72,500 after incentives. That's a lot cheaper than a $100,000 Silverado. Now, GM say they will bring in some cheaper Silverados. We don't know when that's going to happen. But if that does happen, I think General Motors will get a massive amount of demand for the Silverado EV because it is actually a very impressive vehicle. So 9,000 vehicles in a single month, 9,000 EVs. It's not a huge number. I think General Motors could sell twice that many. And the reason is just production. How many vehicles are they producing? General Motors claim they have hundreds of thousands of actual pre-orders for EVs. But then they're saying demand is patchy, demand isn't there. But they got hundreds of thousands of pre-orders. Which is it? I'll tell you what it is. It's General Motors simply not wanting to sell too many. Because, like I said before, they lose money on every single one they sell. Thanks for watching.